Okay.
Right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Castle Tech Talk, the show where we take 10 minutes to speak with experts that help you and I get just a little bit smarter. Today, I'm joined by fellow Racker and Azure Solutions Architect, Mr. Shawn Sills. I'm saying it right? Shawn Sills?
You are saying it right. I'm not
Yep,
forcing you
okay.
to spell it.
Okay. And we're continuing our series called Public Cloud Puppies, because just like a puppy, getting a public cloud account is easy, but it might cost more than you think. Shawn, just want to kick it over to you, and if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about your technical background, maybe your time at Rackspace, and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, no, most definitely. So I've been a 10-year Racker. I've been at Rackspace for a long time. Wore various hats: system administrator, solutions architect, SE, even some engineering on the side. But as a whole, this has kind of been the last foray at Rackspace of what I've been doing. I've been primarily a Windows architect for many years, 20 plus years. I've been a developer too as well. So it made sense for me to make the move to Microsoft Azure, because that's where pretty much most of my background is at, and that's where most of the workloads that I speak to go to at the end of the day. So essentially, that's what I do at Rackspace. I'm a solutions architect. I work with the solutions architect team for Azure. So I help all the salespeople, all the SEs, everybody that has to kind of just basically tap me as a resource for anything Azure related. That's when I come in and help out.
Okay. And I think you already answered my first question, which was going to be, why did you choose to, go into Azure? And it sounds like it just made sense for you.
It made sense, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Now I am certified. I am certified in AWS and GCP, but essentially Azure has been my main focal point.
Okay. So you have that well-rounded experience or knowledge then. Great. Okay. We're not going to lose you. So the question that's kind of like driven this whole conversation when I first, started, about 6 months ago, I heard people say that, hey, let's go to the public cloud to save money. And that's been kind of the question I've asked, every one of my previous guests is, and answer this in your own words, should businesses move to Azure to save money?
Depends on what is being done. A lot of the conversations that I have with a lot of the businesses, a lot of people think that just moving to the cloud, you save money. And in some aspects of that, you do save money. Some companies have to do hardware refreshes every time they have to do an application upgrade or operating system upgrade. And that costs a lot of money from a CapEx standpoint. So making that move to Azure might make sense from a lift and shift perspective, because I don't have to buy new servers. I don't have to buy more SAN storage or NetApp storage or whatever I need to do to make this work on a new operating system or a new application platform. Azure kind of makes it simple in that aspects. But a lift and shift technology standpoint, from moving from what you have on-prem or your data centers to Azure, it's a wash. Only when you start taking advantage of some of the PaaS services, platform as a service aspects of it, you move the database as a service, move a lot of the things that you were working on legacy platforms with monolithic servers, and you kind of move them to the PaaS part of Azure. That's where you're going to start seeing your savings. Other savings that you can get in Azure, or from a software standpoint, Azure does have benefits to take your licensing and a hybrid use benefit to move them into Azure, so you don't have to pay for licensing again. Your SQL licenses, you can take advantage of reservations. You can take advantage of 3-year or 1-year reserve instances. There are things that Microsoft allows you to do to save money in Azure, but you have to take advantage of those programs in order to see the benefit.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's quite a bit of opportunities to do that. I know every public cloud has kind of what makes them unique. I guess in your opinion, in your own words, based on your knowledge from AWS and GCP, what really makes Azure unique?
I think Azure's identity management story is a lot better than the other public clouds. So a lot of the Windows-based clients use Active Directory. Azure has a thing called Azure Active Directory, which you can basically populate with your AD. This allows you to move all your users and passwords into Azure AD to take advantage of things like Office 365, cloud apps, anything that's in a PaaS type of manner, which will allow you to not have to rethink, how do I do identity in cloud? Other clouds have a similar identity story, but it's not true Azure AD type of identity. Another thing, security and compliances for Windows users. This is a great opportunity to make that move. Uh, all the compliances that PCI, HIPAA, there's so many of them out there. They even have an Azure Gov Cloud that, for government entities that have compliances. Those are things that you can take advantage of once you're in Azure and not have to really worry about infrastructure. Only thing you have to worry about is the governance.
Wow. Okay. And so businesses that are moving to Azure, how do they make sure that they're getting the most out of it? So, from cost savings, from compliance to taking advantage of tooling, like how are they making sure that they're really maximizing their use of Azure?
There are tools out there in the marketplace that tells you how much money you can save by deploying instances in Azure. Azure Site Recovery is one of them. It has like a tool that gives you a report of what instance sizes you're going to have in Azure based off your workloads. Cloud Health is another one. There's various tools that are out there that do these kind of engagements. It basically takes an assessment of what you have running and what your metrics look like on your peak and non-peak times. And then essentially it builds you out kind of a right size VM and what you're expecting to pay for your VM sizes, but not including like other things that you might have to add into the environment too as well. But a lot of times those tools just give you a high level. It doesn't really give you a deep dive. And that's when the architects have to come in there and really take a look at what you're doing, right? The tool is not going to tell you how many firewalls you're going to need to deploy, how many, what your bandwidth cost is going to be, what your backup costs are going to be. Those are kind of the conversations that we need to have. What's your DR strategy going to look like once we move you into Azure or any public cloud? What is your disaster recovery going to look like if you have one right now? These tools won't tell you those things. So it's going to be a combination of tools and solution architects just having conversations with customers of what they're doing, get an idea of what their workload looks like, and then give you a better picture of what your Azure output's going to look like.
You know what this reminds me of is like when you go to the doctor and you get an x-ray done and the x-ray tech has the results and you're like, so what does it look like? And they're like, oh, I really can't tell you anything.
Right.
You need to talk to the doctor, right?
Exactly.
So it's one thing to have the information, but then it's another thing to have it interpreted, right?
Interpreted. And that's key. That's key because it saves you from making mistakes in the cloud because you may think you're doing it right, but at the end of the day, you might have missed something that could be crucial to what you're doing that could add costs at the end of the day.
I've heard that a few times now. It's like automation's great. We have all these processes, but before if you made a mistake and there was just hands that were doing it, you didn't really do a whole lot of damage. But if we have automation, processes are running, there's a kink in the chain, there could be a lot of damage or a lot that's done before it's actually caught.
Right.
So I think that's interesting. So just to wrap it up, what advice would you give, let's say, like a business owner, CTO, or someone involved in the IT space that's considering making a transition from, let's say, on-prem or their current environment and then moving to like an Azure environment?
Sorry, my daughter just came home from work, from school.
No,
I mean,
cool.
go ahead, take her. I'll answer that question in a second. My bad.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah. One of the gifts of working from home.
Yeah.
For the CTOs that are trying to make that move, right? The CEOs, the CIOs, they're trying to make that move into Azure. They really need to understand what they're trying to get out of Azure, right? If it's just basically, I'm going to try and make my application modernized, and I want to take advantage of some of the features in cloud, then there has to be a very strategic approach to that. Like what applications make a lot of sense in that arena? What applications basically are so legacy that we can't make that move and we're just going to have to do this on VMs, right? We can't just say we're going to take 115 VMs, we're going to move them up in Azure, we're going to have a good day. There are things that are going to work, some things that are not going to work. Cloud doesn't allow you to do a lot of things. Case in point, I get a lot of companies that want to move their their telecom equipment up into Azure, but there's no QoS, right? And you can't do QoS, which means voice over IP is only allowed by certain vendors in Azure based on their basically the partners that they use. So if you have old telecom equipment, that might not be a good play to move into Azure, right? And those are kind of things that I see a lot of legacy stuff that a lot of people want to move, but it's not a good fit. So those hybrid conversations come up a lot. Like, hey, let's move this workload, 80% of this workload into Azure because we can do something with that workload, and modernize it if we need to. And that 20% that's just so legacy, we can't do anything about it. Keep that on-prem, connect it up in a hybrid kind of connectivity. Either that's going to be a VPN or an express route from on-prem into Azure, and then you can get the best of both worlds. So it definitely takes a lot of planning, a lot of just project planning in nature, because the other thing that you have to worry about is outages and downtimes to the people who are using these systems. So I tell a lot of companies, don't try and make this a 2-month sprint. Project plan it out. So when you do it right. You don't have to worry about regrets, because the cloud is for everyone, but it's not for everything. So you have to be very, very strategic on what you're doing.
That's really good advice. So Shawn, thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and join us next week when we'll talk about GCP and dive a little deeper into that public cloud. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one.